Welcome to the IWP podcast, coming to you live from the Institute of World Politics in Washington, D.C. I'm Jim Robbins, Dean of Academics at IWP, an accredited graduate school of national security, intelligence, and international affairs, offering a variety of certificates, master's degrees, and doctorates, both in person and online. You can check out our programs and our courses at our website, iwp.edu. Last week, the House of Representatives, in a bipartisan vote, advanced legislation requiring Chinese company ByteDance to sell its widely used video app TikTok or have it banned in the United States. Meanwhile, former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said he was going to assemble a group to purchase the app. There's some opposition to the congressional move. The Washington Post reported that small business owners, educators, activists, and young people who use TikTok were scrambling to respond, with many arguing that it plays an increasingly crucial role in the national economy and American public life. However, that increasingly crucial role is exactly the problem. Let's look at it from a national security point of view. Yes, there is the data privacy angle. That is definitely one concern. Whatever goes into TikTok goes directly to the Chinese Communist Party. They can access all your public posts. So if you plan a future in U.S. government, you might want to remember who has been watching you. Your images and other data will go into their biometric databases, and the CCP can copy all the user info you might load in: name, email, phone number, credit cards, who you know, whatever. It sounds concerning, and it is. But put it in the context of all the digital surveillance that's out there, and it's only a small part of the problem. Think of all the things that track your location, that listen to you, all the apps on your phone that you've downloaded where you have no idea where the data is going, all the images of you that are posted online, some of which you may not even be aware of, or software on your computer or phone that is operating completely without your knowledge. And with the Internet of Things becoming more and more prevalent, it gets more and more difficult. We don't want to think of our refrigerator as spyware, but what information is it collecting anyway? Probably more than we want to know. And of course, while we watch television, television watches us. So digital privacy in general is a serious issue, of which TikTok is one of the more controversial parts. The only way to escape this issue is not to play, to go off the grid. But that's another podcast. But if you're off the grid, you won't hear it. Part of the discussion around the idea of buying TikTok is how expensive it would be. And you might see comments about how the TikTok algorithm was the most important or most valuable or most expensive part of the entire enterprise. But since China won't sell or even let anyone see the algorithm, Mnuchin could get a bargain price. TikTok would then have to build a new algorithm. So what's Mnuchin buying? The brand, the app, the back catalog. Okay, fine. Those things aren't really the problem with TikTok, at least not from a national security angle. The algorithm is the most dangerous part. That's the problem in the first place, because it's a tool where the PRC uses to conduct political warfare against the United States. For decades, communists have been broadcasting narratives into America seeking to destabilize, divide, and degrade our great and free country. You can trace this all the way back to the days of the Comintern a century ago. It's taken place over radio, it's taken place over television, through other media, through publications, through organizing underground activity in front groups inside this country, news organs, transmission belts, and other of what Lenin allegedly called useful idiots. We used to play this game seriously too. The Cold War was very much the height of political warfare and influence operations for the United States, with strategic messaging aimed at the captive populations behind the Iron Curtain, integrated with overall U.S. strategy. But while the U.S. was broadcasting subversive messages about freedom and liberty and human dignity, the communist messages in the United States sought to degrade national will, sow division, and destroy freedom. It was a well-established strategy in the communist playbook. And it spoke to their worldview. Incessant propaganda was a fact of life in communist society, a weapon employed against their own people, and for the same purpose, control. And while the United States severely downgraded strategically integrated influence operations after the Cold War, Russia and China ramped them up. The digital information age and rise of social media platforms gave them new means of pushing out their messaging. There's a very good RAND study from 2021 on the use of foreign social media by the Chinese People's Liberation Army to carry out what they call cognitive domain operations. These involve subliminal messaging, deepfakes, overt propaganda, and public sentiment analysis. The cognitive domain is your mind. Think about it. The mind is a theater of operations. That's how they think about it. Maybe we should more often. So TikTok is just the latest and most insidious evolution of this technique. The algorithm itself is part of the social engineering and political warfare that the Chinese Communist Party is waging on this country. Like any algorithm, TikTok makes content recommendations tailored to each user, deciding what you will see based on a variety of criteria, such as engagement, user interactions, video information like captions and hashtags, device and account settings like country and language, and how long you watch a given video. But it can also push out messages based on other factors, including whatever the Communist Party wants you to see or not to see. ByteDance, the company behind TikTok, is heavily influenced by the Communist Party. A study by the Jamestown Foundation found that a party committee micromanages ByteDance's operations and decision-making. The party committee engages in activities to reinforce party loyalty among its members, including oath-taking ceremonies, where employees swear to uphold and never betray the party's agenda. Zhang Fuping, secretary of the company's party committee, has committed to working with government agencies and emphasized the importance of the party committee taking a proactive and elevated role in oversight, ensuring that algorithmic decisions are in accordance with Xi Jinping thought and promote socialist core values. This is manifested in different ways inside and outside the PRC. For Douyin, the domestic Chinese version of TikTok, also owned by ByteDance, and with over 800 million users, the algorithm promotes socially useful messages about family, about hard work, education, intelligence, and loyalty to the Communist Party. These are meant to enhance national strength, growth, and cohesion. And just to make sure, this is all done under the watchful eye of the internal security services. In 2018, Zhang Hongyi, Deputy Director of the Cybersecurity Bureau of the Ministry of Public Security, said that the influence of short videos on society continues to increase, and the central and local party and government organs have opened official government affairs accounts on the Douyin platform to carry out positive energy propaganda in the form of videos, igniting the enthusiasm of all walks of life to transmit positive energy, and has won the general resonance and full affirmation of netizens and social public opinion. Don't you love that communist language? Positive energy. In 2021, the Chinese government enacted a law calling for the creation and broadcast of online content conducive to the healthy growth of minors. And Douyin imposed a 40-minute daily limit for users under 14. The Chinese government also seeks to limit screen time to 2 hours for other minors. TikTok, of course, carries no such limits. The internet in general in China has long been heavily censored. China pioneered the technology of internet censorship. And the Great Firewall bans popular American social media like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter, all purveyors of negative energy. Most recently, Douyin banned AI, stating it is prohibited to use generative artificial intelligence technology to create or publish content that violates scientific common sense, engages in fraud, and spreads rumors. They do all these things to try to promote a vision of China's future as a growing and prospering country under the wise leadership of Chairman Xi Jinping. Meanwhile, the TikTok algorithm in this country promotes the strange, the bizarre, the controversial, and the divisive. A Rutgers study from December 2023 showed that highly divisive topics like Black Lives Matter, abortion, and of course all things Trump are heavily promoted, while matters the CCP would rather we not think about, like the Tiananmen Square massacre, Hong Kong protests, Falun Gong, Tibetan independence, or the genocide of the Uyghurs, are downgraded or censored. Leaked TikTok moderation guidelines from 2019 showed that this was intentional and not incidental. A study in Taiwan found that TikTok users tend to have more pro-Chinese views. Of course they do. Other studies showed TikTok spreading violent and sometimes false imagery from Ukraine and the Gaza war. In response to these studies, TikTok restricted access to the tools analysts were using to conduct the research. So this is why ByteDance and the PRC are unwilling to let anyone see the TikTok algorithm, because it is toxic and destabilizing by design. Now, you would think that replacing TikTok would not be that difficult. Just ban it as a Chinese Communist Party influence app and let the marketplace replace it with something that's American-owned and operated. Of course, the fact that something is an American social medium doesn't mean it will be operated in a way that's good for this country. Clearly not. Look at all the social media alternatives that are out there that echo the same type of destructive, divisive messaging that we see coming from communist China. In many ways, we do their work for them. There are vast sectors of our society that have been trained to do their work for them. I mean, look at Google and its woke Gemini AI image generator, specifically tailored to produce the kind of output that Chairman Xi would absolutely approve. Google and like-minded progressives are a wrecking crew for American culture. So simply banning TikTok won't root out the generational harm that the march through the institutions has done. One issue people raise, opposing the ban, is that this is not something the U.S. government should be involved in, that our commitment to free speech should be paramount. And in general, I'm sympathetic to that view. But there's no reason why our commitment to free speech and free enterprise should allow a foreign entity operating under the influence of the Chinese Communist Party, or for that matter, any other malign foreign actors, to utilize our freedoms specifically with a mission of destroying our country. The content is not the problem. Justice Robert H. Jackson wrote in 1949 that the Constitution is not a suicide pact. People who are wrapped around the axle about whether legislating against TikTok is a free speech issue should understand that TikTok is a tool being used by a foreign power to weaken our great country. This has nothing to do with free speech. Most people did not seem to be upset with the idea that the United States could take action against Russia for its efforts at election interference, which also, by the way, is nothing new and goes back decades. So why be upset over this more subtle and long-term effort to influence the entire American political culture and not just a tactical move against specific elections? TikTok represents a much more insidious threat because it seeks to change the norms and undercurrents of our entire society. If much of our social discourse is being shaped by forces that are hostile to traditional American values and norms of freedom, then we have to fight back against these methods, and one of them is TikTok. Here's what Thomas Jefferson said about the relationship between the law and duty to uphold it. A strict observance of the written law is doubtless one of the high duties of a good citizen, but it is not the highest. The laws of necessity, of self-preservation, of saving our country when in danger, are of higher obligation. To lose our country by a scrupulous adherence to the written law would be to lose the law itself, with life, liberty, property, and all those who are enjoying them with us, thus absolutely sacrificing the ends to the means. People have to understand that our adversaries are long-term planners with an agenda to weaken and destroy our freedoms and our nation. They will use every tool at their disposal to achieve these ends. They firmly believe that they are on the right side of history, that time is on their side, and the clock is ticking. You might wonder if that is why they called it TikTok. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this podcast, please share and subscribe. For IWP, I'm Jim Robbins. Join us next week for another edition of the IWP Podcast.